Now, Vanessa Van Edward is a renowned behavioral researcher, international best-selling author, and instructor at Harvard University. Over 70 million people watch her video tutorials on YouTube. I'm one of them. And her book, Captivate, the Science of Succeeding with People, has been translated into 18 languages. Not 16, not 17, 18 languages. Hundreds of thousands of students have taken her online courses, and her unique work appears regularly in the media across the world. Her most recent book, Q's The Secret Language of Charismatic Communication, was an instant bestseller. We are so excited to have her join us here today. Please welcome to the stage Vanessa Van Edwards.
Thank you. So much fun for you.
I am so honored and excited to be here today because we are talking about the single most important ingredient in the formula of success. In the famous words of Teddy Roosevelt, is knowing how to get along with people. Now, I have a little confession. I love this quote, but I don't always love people. No, I don't. I actually call myself a recovering awkward person. Yeah. I wish that I knew how to get along with people. In fact, I used to think something was wrong with me, that I wasn't more outgoing, that I couldn't just pretend to be more extroverted. And I am actually so not extroverted, I call myself a social vegan. I avoid meat. Yes. It is really hard to get along with people if you're a social vegan. Little did I know that this challenge would become the central focus of my career. My mission is to study highly charismatic people. How do we connect with others? How can we do this if we are not naturally extroverted? And the question that started my career 18 years ago was, what makes someone charismatic? And more importantly, can we learn to be charismatic if we're not born with it? Now, 12 years ago, I discovered a study that changed my life, and today I'm hoping it will change yours. This is a very interesting study. It was done at Princeton University. They wanted to know what makes someone charismatic. Why is it that some people can hop on stage, hop on a video call, email you, pick up the phone, and you immediately like them? What makes someone charismatic? And they had all kinds of hypotheses, right? When we think of highly charismatic people, we think, are they more extroverted? Are they funnier? Are they smarter? Are they more attractive? Are they taller? We have all these hypotheses. And it turns out, the researchers found that none of those mattered consistently. What mattered, the most charismatic people ranked off the charts in two specific traits. And these two traits give us a formula for charisma. They were highly charismatic people have high warmth and high competence. What happens is when we see or meet or hear from a highly charismatic person, first, they signal high warmth. They signal likability and friendliness and trust. But at the very same time they signal the warmth, they are also signaling high competence, power, efficiency, capability. In this way, what the researchers found is every time we meet, see, or hear from another human being, we're trying to answer two basic questions. First, can I trust you? And second, can I rely on you? The faster we're able to answer those two questions, the more charismatic we are. Now, what's interesting about this is a major part of our impressions of people. 82% of our impressions of people are based on warmth and competence. That means that we can have the best ideas in the world, but if we don't know how to showcase them with warmth and competence, people do not have a good impression of them. And so my mission today is to teach us, how can we learn the cues of warmth and competence? This comes from the research. I call this the charisma scale. So as you can see, that sweet spot, high warmth, high competence, is that upper quadrant. Very highly charismatic people rank high in those two. The problem with this scale is that most of us do not fall into that upper quadrant. Most of us have an imbalance where we showcase a lot of warmth but not enough competence, or a lot of competence but not enough warmth. And the big one, and this is where we're finding more and more people, is what I call the danger zone, where we under-signal. In professional settings, I've noticed that we tend to default to sending less signals. We think it's formal or professional to not show any emotion at all. The problem is when we don't showcase enough warmth or competence, people cannot trust us. Under-signaling causes people to doubt, underestimate, and dismiss us. And so I want to make sure that we're highlighting the right signals. Let me talk about this imbalance for just a second. When we have an imbalance, it makes people treat us differently. And the hard part about this research, when I read this research originally, this was the part that made me uncomfortable. It is not your actual warmth and competence, it's your perceived warmth and competence. Inconvenient. That means you could be super prepared, you could know all your stuff, you could have great numbers, you can know that you're trustworthy, but if you don't signal it, people don't believe it. When we talked earlier, Kaz talked about mobilizing ideas. The way we mobilize ideas is sharing them, showcasing them with warmth and competence. You can have the best information in the world, but if we don't showcase it right, people don't believe it. So what I want to do now is I want to assess your warmth and competence. You ready to play a little charisma game? Yeah, good. Hopefully you had your coffee. Okay, well, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to read you 6 pairs of statements. Don't overthink these answers. I want you to go with your gut instinct. I want you to think which statement sounds more like you. And count your A's and B's. So maybe A's on your left hand and B's on your right hand, okay? Here we go. Which one sounds more like you? A, I am known for my kindness. B, I am known for my skills. And there's no C, all of the above. I'm so sorry. Got to pick A or B. Okay. I don't want you to overthink them. This one's hard. I know. Pair number 2, A, I am patient. B, I am efficient. And this is you on your actual day, not you on your best day. Yes, okay. Pair number 3. This is what warm and competent folks struggle with. A, people sometimes interrupt me. Or B, people sometimes tell me I am intimidating. Which is more of a struggle? Someone went, ooh, I know. I like sound effects. I like them. Pair number 4, hard one. A, I am compassionate. B, I am impressive. Just one. Okay. Pair number 5, this is what people seek you out for. A, people often come to me when they want a shoulder to cry on. Or B, people often come to me when they want to problem solve. Okay, last one. A, I am a great collaborator. B, I am a great leader. Okay, count up your A's and B's. I promise this is the only math we're going to do today. No more math. How many people had more A's? Raise your hand. I would love to see. Look around, by the way. Okay, how many people had more B's? About even. How many had 3 of 3? Okay, whoa, whoa. I like it. Yes. All answers are welcome. All answers are welcome. This score, whether you realize it or not, is dictating how you communicate your ideas. Your default is changing how people perceive you. And I want to walk through each area of the scale really quickly. I want you to think, does this sound like me? But I also want you to think, does this sound like anyone in your life, anyone you work with? Let's start with high competence. So my highly competent folks, people who signal lots of power signals, you are often seen as smart and powerful and capable and efficient, but a little hard to talk to, intimidating. You're not always seen as collaborative or a good team player. Our leaders, our managers who come into our lab and they rank off the charts in competence have the same people struggles over and over again. People tell them they're cold. They can't always get buy-in on their ideas. And more importantly, this comes directly from the research. Competence without warmth is likely to leave us feeling suspicious. You can have the best ideas in the world, the best data, but if you don't know how to showcase those ideas with warmth, you cannot mobilize them. If you want to mobilize and educate people on a new idea, we have to share it with smarts and warmth. And this is the curse of very smart people. Very smart people, they think, I know my stuff, I know my data, I've studied, I'm ready. And so we come into the room ready to present, ready to share ideas, but people do not believe them. And it is because we are lacking the essential warmth cues. Let's go to high warmth. My highly warm folks, my A folks who raise their hand, you are seen as friendly and likable. You're included. People love to spend time with you. They love to be with you. But you're often told you're not taken as seriously People who don't see you as credible. We've found that in meetings, people who are rated off the charts in warmth are interrupted more often. You get pushback on your ideas. People dismiss your ideas. Managers who rank high in warmth have the same problems over and over again. People love to spend time with them, but they don't always take their ideas seriously. We need to make sure we are balancing both warmth and competence. And here's the problem. Warm folks often struggle with people-pleasing. And that is because if you are geared more towards high warmth, if you raised your hand for more A's, you really want people to like you. And the struggle that you have is, I want to be liked, but I also want to be seen as credible. And my goal today is to tell you that you can have both. Highly warm folks are focused on being liked. So they go into a meeting, they want to have a little bit of rapport, they want to chit-chat, they want to bond. My highly competent folks, on the other hand, you have a very different goal in a meeting. My highly competent folks, you love agendas. You like to get things done, and you're more oriented toward getting things right, even if that means you're not liked. So for example, my husband is a highly competent person, and he loves to Google fact-check me. Yes. And that is because highly competent folks are more focused on being right than being liked. Totally different approaches to ideas and meetings. Now, this is what's really important. I'm going to give you exact cues to signal high warmth and competence so people see you as more charismatic. But there's a ripple effect here. The higher your warmth and competence, the higher everyone else's warmth and competence. Our charisma is contagious. The reason we like to be around highly charismatic people is we want to catch it. Highly charismatic people make us feel smarter. They make us feel more trustworthy. And so the warmer, the more clear your warmth and competence signals are, the more you infect, in a good way, and inspire your team, your clients, your partners, your colleagues to also be more warm and competent. So I have two goals today. You show up as charismatic, but you make everyone around you show up as more charismatic. The next question is, how do we do this? How do we assess warmth and competence? And it all comes down to our cues. Our cues are the powerful social signals humans send to each other. And we do it in 4 ways. First, the words we use, right? How we communicate. We can have warm and competent words. Second, our body language, so our facial expressions, our gestures, our posture, how I move across stage. Third, our voice, our volume, our pace, our cadence. That also signals warmth and competence. And the last, smallest one are our ornaments, the colors we wear, if we wear glasses, the kind of remote we use, what's behind us in our video background, what's in our profile picture. Those also signal warmth and competence. I want to start with words. Now, I used to start with body language. And then more and more of our communication went virtual. In fact, most of our important conversations are happening only with words, over email or Slack or chat or DMs. So I want to actually start with words, and I want to share a study with you that changed the way I think about my verbal content. Our words change behavior. They're not just for comprehension. In this very, very clever study, researchers brought participants into the lab, and they split them up into 2 different groups. In the first group, they said, hello, welcome to the lab. Today, we're going to play the community game. Then they brought another group into the lab, and they said, hello, today you're going to play the Wall Street game. Now, the trick was, there's always a trick in these studies, the games were exactly the same, right? Everything was the same. The researcher was the same, the tables were the same, the pens were the same. The only difference was that single word change. They wanted to know if the name of the game would change behavior. And here's what they found. Everyone who was told they were playing the Wall Street game shared an average of 1/3 of their profits. It's like a prisoner's dilemma type of game. Everyone who shared the community game or told they were playing the community game shared an average of 2/3 of their profits. This is an incredible change for one single word change. And it means we have so much potential. It means we have the power to change behavior, to change interaction with one single word if we are purposeful with them. Now, this is a little more art than science, but what we have learned studying charisma over the last decade is that highly warm folks use certain kinds of words. Now, I call these warm words. They create kind of the warmth and warm and fuzzies, right? They're words like connect, friend, open, together, excited, collaborate, best, both. My warm folks, you love to use words that literally make you feel more connected. You also like, we've noticed, words like yay, fab, whoop, and wow. Yes, we have noticed this measurably in the lab. You know what also my warm folks like? An emoji. Whew. My warm folks, my A people, you love those emojis. And you know what you also like? Exclamation points. Yes, why have one exclamation point when you could have three? That's how you feel about it. And my warm folks, that's because they really want to get people excited and engaged, right? Your main goal is being likable, is getting people connected. Now, my competent folks, oof, an exclamation point is physically painful. And you use very different types of words. My B folks, you use words that make us want to get it done. They're words that trigger a very different part of our brain, the prefrontal cortex, pre-motivation. You like words like effective, brainstorm, power through, capable, agenda, get ready. My highly competent folks, you love data. You love data, you love charts, you love bullet points. And that is because you want to get it right. You want to provide details so people feel they're in the know. Neither of these are right or wrong, but they are very different. We found we can predict someone's charisma levels based on their sent emails. One of my favorite things to do is to bring an unsuspecting person into my lab and ask to read all of their sent emails. And we also know that we can predict how their team and manager and clients will rate them on charisma based on the types of words they use. And so what I want you to think about is what kind of words are you using and how is it changing behavior? I want to show you an example of someone who is rated as low in warmth and low in competence by their colleagues. We're all set for the meeting next week. I'll prepare an overview and sample proposal for you to look at, then we can review them. Let me know if you have any questions. Is anyone like, is this my email? Did she read my sent folder? This email gets the job done, right? We know what's being said. The problem is, it is in the danger zone. It is under signaling warmth and competence. And this is what happens as we send more and more digital communication, is we sterilize our communication. We remove the actual cues that are needed to signal, you can trust me on this and you can rely on me on this. This is what happens when we send emails like this. Apologies for my delayed response. I thought about emailing you back every day for the past 2 weeks, but I just didn't. It is really hard to communicate in a sterile environment. Humans need cues to communicate. So we wonder why we're not getting buy-in. We wonder why we get slow responses or bad responses. It is because it is physically, emotionally, chemically difficult to reply to people who don't give us enough cues. We like people who make it easy to communicate with. When they're gifting warmth and gifting competence, we feel we know how to reply. And so this sterilizing of our communication is hurting our communication. This is a modified version, it's actually a little bit longer, of an email sent from a highly charismatic person. Now, what's important about this, it is the same word count. Highly charismatic people are not sending longer emails, they're sending better emails. So let's read this one. I'm looking forward to collaborating next week. I'll prepare a goal worksheet and overview desired outcomes for both of us. We can work through everything together. Happy to answer any questions. Same word count, but it feels totally different, right? Research is very clear on this. When we read words like collaborate, we are literally more likely to be collaborative. This email is setting people up for success. If you want to mobilize ideas, if you want to truly inform and inspire people to take action, we have to set them up with the right behavior cues. This is a gift when you get an email like this because it tells you, I know what's expected of me, and it gifts us those good feelings. Warm words make us feel connected. Competent words make us feel motivated, and boy, oh boy, do we need that more than ever. Now, as I mentioned, my highly warm folks love an emoji, yay, hearts and smiley faces. My competent folks, you love data, graph, and charts. And I just had to show this to show how charisma is expecting every aspect of our communication. This is a highly competent blogger, and he tweeted, I spend a lot of time deciding which sentence in the email is going to have to take one for the team with the exclamation point. And I just went, oh, this is so true. And then I saw a highly warm response. I always start with an exclamation point after every sentence, then realize, wait, they can't all have exclamation points. I sound like a lunatic. Then pair them back one by one until only a single exclamation point remains. Truth. Yeah, give him a round of applause. Yeah, they're just so real. So I share this. I share this because warmth and competence is dictating every aspect of our communication, even down to how we exclaim, and we don't realize it. We instinctively know, right? If you're highly warm, you go, it's too warm. It's too much. It's too much. This email is too much. And we know we have to pare it back. And a highly competent person goes, it's not enough. I know I have to add something. So now I'm giving you the language you can use to, it needs more warmth, or it needs more competence, or it's too much warmth, or it's too much competence. So I want you to do, after this, at the lunch break, an email audit. Don't worry, I will leave. I will leave. I will not be here. I want you to do exactly what we do in our lab, and this is critical for how you're actually communicating. I teach this to thousands of people, and the hardest truth is I've learned that the way people think they're communicating is not always the way they're actually communicating. So for all my A folks, I want you to see, are you communicating with more warmth? For all my B folks, are you actually communicating with more competence? Open up your email sent folder. I want you to pull up 5 recent important emails that you wrote. I wish we could queue in every single email, but we send too many. So instead, I want you to focus on the ones that have some stakes, the emails that you spent some time crafting. I want you to open up those 5 recent important messages, and I literally want you to count. How many warm cues are you sending? How many competent cues are you sending? This will tell you exactly what you are signaling to others. Are you communicating your feelings of warmth, your actual competence, into the words? Or are you accidentally sterilizing your communication? This will give you a clue for how people are treating you and how fast your ideas will mobilize. A little bonus audit here if you have time. I want you to open up your calendar and count the cues. Here's what I mean. One thing that we've noticed, I've added this into my presentation recently, I've noticed that a lot of our first impressions are happening digitally. Either people are Googling us, or before we even hop on a phone with a client, before we even get to a meeting, we're sending a calendar invite. I don't know about you, but I open my calendar multiple times a day. 2 things are happening. 1, I am cueing myself every single time I open my calendar. But 2, your calendar invite is your meeting's first impression. Those words are like the community game or the Wall Street game. And so often they are sterile. Call, meeting, conference, one-on-one, or the worst subject in the history of email subjects, follow-up. Just archive, that's what I want to do when I see follow-up. I want you to think about, in your email subjects, in your calendar invites, those are serving as a digital first impression. Can you set people up for behavioral success? Can you cue a little bit of warmth or competence? Every single time someone opens their calendar, their brain is getting ready to interact with you. So if you say collaborative session, 2025 wins, goal meeting, creative session, you're actually telling their brain, I want you to be creative in this session. And that gifts them the activation in their brain around creativity. This also makes us more intentional because we think, what do we want in this meeting? Do I want to have a very warm meeting where we're collaborating, getting along, bonding? Or is it a competent meeting where we have to get it done, we have a lot to do, we have a big agenda? You can set people up for success based on those words. I think this is our human edge. When we talk about soft skills, I think that the way that we differentiate our communication from AI communication is with warmth and competence. Warmth and competence is what makes us fundamentally human, and this is career insurance against AI. If we know how to authentically gift and be contagious in a good way, it makes us stand out. It makes us more effective and infectious in a good way. Now, speaking of AI, we can actually use AI to be more charismatic, and here's where this gets crazy. Are you ready? When the first AI model launched publicly, about a year and a half, 2 years ago, I went and I looked at what it was trained on. It was trained on warmth and competence. In other words, most of the latest AI models have read this research, and they know that it's what makes us very human. And amazingly, AI also knows what words are warm and what words are competent. So you can use it as a charisma coach. You can literally put in an email or a profile or a presentation. I feed it the entire transcripts of all my presentations, and I ask it, was I warm enough? Was I competent enough? I have 60 slides in this presentation. 30 are warm and 30 are competent. And AI helped me make sure I had a balance. You can do the same with your transcripts, with your emails, with your profiles, and ask it to coach you. Don't just ask it to change it because it doesn't sound like you. Ask it to suggest where could you add more warmth and competence. You also can put in an email or LinkedIn profile or script from someone else and ask, is this person more competent? So it can act as a charisma coach, which is even better. Now, I want to make a little note here. Warmth and competence is not about being positive all the time. Yes, I love being positive, but warmth is not inherently positive. It's about trust. And competence is not inherently positive. It's about getting things done. It's about motivation. So this is even more important if things are going wrong. If you have challenging news or a mistake or someone is frustrated, what do they want more than anything? Warmth. You can trust me to solve this. And competence. You can rely on me to fix this. So warmth and competence is not just for positive openers and positive greetings, and I love that, but it's even more critical in times of need and times of change. And you can literally copy these scripts. I hear you, warmth. Let's work together, competence and warmth. Let's solve this, competence. We will fix this, warmth and competence. Let's find a solution, warmth and competence. This is also a gift to people because they feel like, oh, great, we want a charismatic person in a good moment, but also in a crisis. Let's talk about voice. I think that this is the most underestimated aspect of our communication. How we say our words matters more than what we actually say. And let me give you an example of this. If I were to come on stage today and say, "Hi, I'm so happy to be here," you would believe my voice over my words. And that is true in almost every situation. We are listening for vocal truth. So a mistake that people can make is they have the perfect script or the perfect words, but they don't deliver it with authentic warmth and competence. And so we have to make sure that we are congruent in our cues, and a lot of that comes down to our voice. Now, this is my favorite study I'm going to talk about today, and it had to do with doctors. So in this study, they wanted to test warmth and competence, and they wanted to do it through voice cues. They wanted to see, we judge warmth and competence through words and through body language, but what happens with the voice? So they brought in surgeons, and the reason they picked surgeons is because surgeons are already smart. If you are a working surgeon, you've made it through many years of school, and you're successful enough to be operating on people. So they wanted a high baseline of already smart people. They brought them into their lab, and they asked these surgeons to record their introductions, the thing they say all day, every day in their first impressions. So their name, their specialty, where they worked. It sounded like this. Hi, my name is Dr. Edwards. I specialize in oncology, and I work at Children's Presbyterian Hospital. They took these clips and they warbled the words, so you could hear the volume, the pace, the cadence, the tone, but not the actual words being said. So it sounded like this. That was hard, by the way. So they took these clips with warbled words, and they asked participants to rate them on warmth and competence. The participants had no idea they were listening to surgeons, but they were asked to listen to this clip of gobbledygook, and they were asked, is this person smart? Do you like this person? Do you imagine? What happened was there were certain surgeons who over and over again were rated as high in warmth and high in competence. And there were certain surgeons that over and over again were rated as low in competence and low in warmth. And the doctors who had the lowest ratings of warmth and competence had the highest rate of malpractice lawsuits. This means that we don't sue people based on their skills. We sue people based on our perception of their skills. And that happens within the first few seconds of hearing them. And there were patterns. There were certain things that the doctors who had low ratings were doing in their vocal tone clips to signal low competence and low warmth. And the number one pattern I want to teach you today was the doctors who had low ratings of warmth and competence used an accidental question inflection. A question inflection is when we go up at the end of our sentence, so it sounds like we're asking instead of stating. So their vocal introduction sounded like this. Hi, my name is Dr. Edwards. I specialize in oncology. I work at Children's Presbyterian Hospital. This was for both men and women, that when we accidentally use a question inflection, it does something very interesting in our brain. They put people in fMRI machines and looked at their brain patterns while they were hearing accidental question inflections. And they found that when we hear an accidental question inflection, like on someone's name, our brain goes from listening to scrutinizing. And that is because liars use the question inflection. Liars don't really believe what they're saying, so they accidentally ask you, do you believe this? So if I ask my daughter, did you take the last cookie from the plate? And she's like, no, she did, right? She did. She's asking if I believe her. So we are listening for accidental question inflections because it reminds us of deception, and that makes us nervous. Here is what is very inconvenient. We are most likely to ask our names, our introductions, and what we do, and this often happens within the first 10 seconds. I have a course called People School, and I asked all my People School students, please send me your recordings of your phone calls and your Zoom calls so I can analyze your voice. And we found that even the most competent of people accidentally gave away all their competence in the first 10 seconds. So here's what I want you to think about. Never ask your name, a number, or important information. And this is especially important when you're delivering an idea. Don't ask it, state it. I do a lot of sales trainings. I love sales trainings, and I love listening in on sales calls. I can always predict who is going to have the lowest close rate, who's going to have the worst times with sales, and it's always the people who ask their numbers. Sounds like this. We'd love to work with you, and we'd love to have your business, and the cost of this service is $5,000. Did you hear it? If you ask your numbers, you are begging people to negotiate with you. You're telling them, I don't really believe this number, and neither should you. So I want you to practice as you're mobilizing these ideas, state it, don't ask it. If you're nervous about something or you're not sure about something, go work on your competence first so you don't accidentally ask it. And this is where authentic competence comes in. The more we know our stuff, the less likely we are going to accidentally use the question inflection. This is the point in the presentation where I want you to double check your answers. So this is up for free. You can take it as many times as you want. It comes from the research. It's a longer version of that quiz we did earlier. I want you to test two things. One, take the quiz and screenshot your results. See where you fall in warmth and competence. But second, I want you to send it to a partner or a colleague and have them take it as you, and then have a nice bottle of wine together. Because how they see you might be different from how you see yourself. This is the only way we can self-check. Because how you think you come across might be different than how other people see you. Last section before I'll take a couple questions. Body language makes up anywhere from 60 to 90% of our communication. And by the way, it's very hard to measure this. 60% was the lowest study my researchers could find. And that's still the majority. So the question is, what's happening non-verbally? More and more, our non-verbal cues have gone to video. And we look like this. Any excuse to put a dog on a slide, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I think on Zoom, we forget all of our body language rules. They go out the window. And so I want to teach you a couple of my favorite video cues before I take questions. First, I love a slow triple nod. Everyone try this with me. Research shows that when you do a slow triple nod, the other person speaks 67% longer. So even when you're on mute, look how good it looks. Now be careful. I love a slow triple nod, but don't bobblehead. Right? We don't want to just do this the whole time. That's too high in warmth. We also have to make sure we don't do it too fast. So a slow triple nod shows engagement and curiosity. A fast triple nod shows impatience. So just be careful which one you use. You also can add a head tilt. A head tilt is a very nice warmth signal. This is universal. By the way, a cultural note for the nod, India, Bulgaria, and Pakistan, nodding is a little bit different. But outside of those cultures, a vertical nod shows agreement. Universally, however, a head tilt is a warmth cue. Why? We want to hear something better. We tilt our head to expose our ear. That's why we love dogs when they go, oh, they're so cute. He's listening to me. That's how we feel. So you can use the head tilts as a universal sign of warmth. It looks great on Zoom. Looks great on video. It's also very good for delivering bad news. They've actually found that when you pair the head tilt with bad news, it softens the news for the other person. It makes them feel listened to, which is wonderful. You also can do this if you nod too much. So if you're a bobbleheader, just replace it with the head tilt because you can't do both at the same time. Yeah. Beware of fake smiles, please. So fake smiles, I think, are killing our charisma. If you don't actually feel happy, don't smile. Actually, some terrible advice you hear is just smile more. I would much rather you not smile at all than give a fake smile. It rubs us as inauthentic warmth, which is the worst thing to come back from. I love an eyebrow raise. Love a Terry Crews eyebrow raise. Try this with me. Give me an eyebrow raise. My Botox people, you can't do it. That's okay. That's okay. Just look at that, eyebrows. That's a universal sign of curiosity and engagement. And that's because when we want to see something better, our eyebrows get out of the way so we can see better. And it looks great on Zoom, on mute. We also love a vocal affirmation. We love that, wow, uh-huh. We love those vocal affirmations. And what's amazing is they even look good on mute. Watch. Still look good, even on mute. Now, hands. I got to talk very quickly about hands. I get this question a lot where we're just not sure what to do with them. What do we do with our hands, especially presenting, especially on video? Our hands are critical aspects of warmth and competence. In fact, my TED Talk is all about hand gestures. Shockingly, I got a TED Talk on hand gestures, which is the funniest thing. And that is because when we have visible hands, like you'll notice when I came on stage, the very first thing I did was show my hand. That is because when we can see someone's palm, we feel that we can trust them. They're literally open-handed. On a video call, the very first thing I want you to do is, morning, good to see everyone. It literally signals friend, 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 friend. Very, very simple cue. I also want you to see if you can add some power gestures. There are some gestures that are so good they carry 400% more information. For example, if I were to say, today I want to talk to you about 3 different ideas, you are more likely to believe my gesture over my words. And that is the power of nonverbal. So see if you can add. If you're talking about 2 ideas, show me it's 2. If you're talking about A is here and B is here. If you have a really big idea, show me how big it is. It's kind of like nonverbal outlining. One of my favorite gestures, we can try it together, is the steeple. Just try this with me. It's a power pose for the hands. This was actually rated as one of the best gestures for leaders. It's kind of poised and competent. Just be careful, don't drum. No drumming, okay? Right, we're not Mr. Burns, so a nice still steeple is a great way to listen. All of these cues are magnetizing your charisma. And it's very important that we clearly signal warmth and competence for us to be more charismatic, but also to signal charisma and make others more warm and more competent. And I'm ready for questions. Woo!
Wasn't that incredible? I was laughing throughout.
Okay.
I
I
was trying
try.
to compose
I try.
myself. So, we have some audience Q&A. We've already got some things in, but we also have a voted option. So please do, if you don't have your own question, have a look at the questions, because that will help me prioritize the right questions. So going first to Kelsey. This question is, so there's a lot of communicators in the room, so it's quite meta, actually, this.
Yeah.
So as communicators, how can we reflect charisma into our leader communications to help our employees feel more connected and trusting of leadership?
So remember that cues are contagious in the sense of if you see someone with very closed body language, very still gestures, we tend to mimic that. Right? So if you are very still or stoic, taking up less space, not using gestures, not using head movements, that will infect. The good news, the positive side of that is the more positive cue you use, the more contagious you are. You also want to showcase these in every area. So your profile pictures, your Zoom calls. I also think that speaker training, like the how we present, is just as important as the what. So as leaders, make it part of your cultural norm that you're saying, hey, you have a presentation to leadership or you have a big pitch to a client. Let's look at your slides. Let's look at what you're going to say, but let's also practice your delivery. It is absolutely empowering to help someone with their delivery. So for example, if someone is has vocal fry, so they are kind of speaking like this with a very little vocal power and you hear that sizzling, ask them to speak up. The moment you ask someone to speak up, it gets rid of vocal fry. So you can become a communication coach as a leader, and that's what the best leaders do.
There's like a really interesting movement at the moment where you've got like the humanization of leaders. I know it's a weird word to use.
Yes.
But like there's kind of like a big movement in the industry of leaders kind of being more present and visible. Do you think that's generally a good thing?
I think it's amazing. I also think that podcasts are changing this. You know, I've been doing this for 18 years, and podcasts weren't really around. It was really just blogging, and so we got all of our information from books. Well, it's very hard to teach and observe body language from a book.
Yep.
And so a lot of our leaders were trained on books, which misses an entire 2 aspects of communication, vocal and body language, which is why I think they get to now and they're like, I don't know what to do with my hands, or I don't know how to deliver it with a power tone of voice. And so, you know, I do free podcasts as free public education. It's a part of my business model for a reason. So if you have someone who needs coaching, send them to Stephen Bartlett. interview,
Yes, yeah,
right?
yeah.
Send them those free podcasts. Send them the TED Talks. There is free resources and coaching around that immediately, when someone learns about a hand gesture, they never unlearn it, right? Like they're always going to know it.
Yep.
And so I think that sending those resources around really helps. That's
Nice.
why I think we've had this movement.
Oh, for
Yeah.
sure, yeah, and I think it's a great thing as well. So yeah. Moving on to a question from Jenny Field. So in a recent podcast conversation between Adam Grant and Brene Brown, they shared that charisma can sometimes discriminate against women and introverts. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Oh, yes. Okay, this is a great question. So women and men have different defaults, and they've actually studied this in the research, really interesting research. And by the way, they even have, this research is very well documented, what we talked about today. They even have different cultures placed on the warmth and competence scale. So for example, Germans are seen as higher in competence, right? Like just culturally, there's different sways, right? So if you are in a different culture, UK and US are very similar, actually. But if you're working in a different culture, I highly recommend looking up where that culture falls on the warmth and competence scale. Women tend to default to being perceived as higher in warmth simply because our mothers were often warm. It's a cue that we learned. Men often, not always, are defaulted to being seen as higher in competence because they typically are taught less, they're socialized with less warmth cues. These are not right or wrong, but it's important to know that there's a little bit of a default happening there. So oftentimes, women, I teach them more competence cues. I'd rather use a few more competence cues to balance it out. And men, I'm often teaching more warmth cues. But again, it's not everyone. There are some men who are seen as very warm. There are some women who are seen as very competent. So that's why I'm always careful to teach all of the cues, and then you kind of can choose them like a recipe, right, based on what you do. And introverts, so introverts typically use less words in a day. So when they use words, they should make them count. I think that's kind of great. Most of my students are introverts, highly ambitious introverts. And I'm like, how wonderful that you're using less words in general. So when you use them, you want to make sure that they are behavior cues. So I think that introverts have an opportunity to be very good listeners, but also when they speak, to make those cues more powerful.
Excellent. And sticking kind of on that theme of defaults and different cultures and different perceptions, do you think unconscious bias ever plays a role in how people read warmth and confidence?
Yes, it's very much in the research. So if this is, I think, one of the most fascinating aspects of human behavior because they've actually documented it and measured it. If you're interested in this, Google image, stereotype content model. That's what this is called. So the fancy version name for the warmth and confidence model is the stereotype content model. And it literally has a chart in Google Images of where the unconscious biases are. Age, race, culture. So you can see what we're working with. And I think that's very helpful. If it's measured and we can see where people are defaulting, we can begin to correct it.
Excellent. The audience are perfectly threading these questions for us. So on the topic of age, on the topic of age, how do young professionals get past being seen as young?
Oh, this is really hard. So young people are often seen as higher in warmth, right? And that's only because typically not always they're more animated, they might giggle more, they might nervous smile more, right? You have more of those warm gestures that come out through nervousness. So for younger folks, I think that learning the power cues, the highly competent cues, are incredibly important. Here's some of my favorites for young people. First, the amount of space you take up. Specifically, 2 measurements. The distance between your ear and your shoulder. Warm folks, when they're nervous, they tend to shrink down like this. So they have very little space between their shoulders and their ears. That makes them look even smaller and even younger. You notice like teenagers, when they walk through the hallways at high school, they're like almost self-hugging. When I do this, you would have a hard time taking advice from me if I were to give my entire presentation like this. Right? And so I want you to, on video calls, in your profile picture, when you walk into a room, maximize this distance. One, it makes you look more like a winner, which ages you in a good way, and they've actually studied that the more space you take up, the more prideful you look in a good way. And also, make sure you have distance between your torso and your arms. That's another distance. And that is because when we're afraid or nervous, we typically tighten our arms to our side. We take up as little space as possible. So using chairs with armrests, so making sure your chair has an armrest, making sure that when you're on video, you're actually trying to show more of your torso, so you're showing how much space you're taking up. The more gestures you use, the more space you have here. It also helps with your vocal power. So it is very hard for me to deliver with vocal power when I'm like this, it's physically challenging. The more space I take up, the easier it is for me to have more breath, and that's also a competence cue.
I didn't even think about the chairs doing us a favor here.
Yeah, and like, like those really high stools are really hard because you're like balancing on the
yeah.
top. Get rid of those in your office.
No bar stools.
Or give them to your clients to make them nervous. Never. Don't do that.
So we have a question from Abby here. So do you find that highly warm and highly competent people also prefer to receive communications or signals based on their type?
Okay, so this is advanced. So when we think about warmth and competence, the default is I want you to show warmth and competence. But the advanced is if you know you have a client or a leader who is off the charts in competence, it would serve you to dial up your competence and dial down your warmth. In that way, it's kind of like a thermostat, right? Like we typically like here between 68 and 75 degrees. It's kind of the same thing with warmth and competence. If you know someone who likes it at 68, keeping the room a little bit cooler for them, they're going to like it. They're going to perform at their best. And so, yes, I mirror and match my VIPs, even down to emojis. Like if I have a VIP who uses like a colon and a parentheses as opposed to like an equal sign and a parentheses, I match even their emoji use. I'll match their word usage. I match their nonverbal. I change my vocal tone out of respect for them. And so that's mirroring. And mirroring is the most advanced nonverbal cue that you can have. But if you can do it, I would say do it.
Excellent. Everyone, please give a massive round of applause
Yay!
for Vanessa.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.